A 54-year-old tech CEO walks into Judge Caprio's courtroom 40 minutes late. Designer suit, Rolex visible, talking on his phone like he owns the place. Judge Caprio asks him to silence his phone and explain his contempt charge for previous no-show. The CEO laughs, actually laughs, then says 5 words that make the entire courtroom gasp. "You cannot judge me." Judge Caprio's pen stops. "Excuse me?" The CEO leans forward with absolute arrogance. "Do you know who I am? I am God in my industry." What Judge Caprio does next becomes the most brutal takedown in his courtroom's history. Because telling a judge you're God is the fastest way to meet actual judgment. Subscribe now and drop your city. This destruction is biblical. Thursday morning, 10 a.m. hearing scheduled. The bailiff calls the case at 10 sharp. Case 12847. Theodore Langston. Failure to appear. Contempt of court. No response. Empty podium. 10:15. Still nothing. 10:30. Judge Caprio is visibly annoyed. Bailiff, has Mr. Langston contacted the court? No, Your Honor. 10:40. Finally, the courtroom doors swing open. A man in his 50s strides in, not walks, strides, wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. Rolex Daytona on his wrist catching the light. AirPods Max around his neck. Phone pressed to his ear, talking loudly. "I don't care what the board says. Make it happen. That's why I pay you." He glances at the bench, holds up one finger to Judge Caprio like, "Give me a minute," and continues his call. "No, tell Singapore we're pulling out if they don't agree by Friday." Judge Caprio's face is stone. "Sir? Sir, end the call now." Theodore glances up, annoyed at the interruption. He doesn't end the call. "Yeah, I got to go. Some court thing. Handle it." He finally hangs up, but doesn't apologize. Judge Caprio's voice is ice. "Your name?" "Theodore Langston." He says it like the judge should recognize it. Like it's a name that matters. "Mr. Langston, you were ordered to appear at 10 a.m. It's now 10:42. Can you explain why you're 42 minutes late to a contempt hearing?" Theodore shrugs. Actually shrugs, like the question is beneath him. "Traffic. You know how it is. Traffic. You couldn't call the court to notify us? I'm here now, aren't I? Let's just get this over with. I have a meeting at 11:30. The courtroom is silent. People are watching this unfold with disbelief. You don't talk to Judge Caprio like this. Judge Caprio reviews the file. "Mr. Langston, you're the CEO of Langston Technologies. Is that correct?" "That's correct." He says it with pride. Like it's armor. "And you failed to appear for a traffic citation hearing 3 weeks ago. No call, no explanation, just didn't show up. And you know that resulted in this contempt charge. Do you understand why that's a problem?" "Look, Your Honor." He says Your Honor like it's a formality he's forced to observe. "I run a company worth $400 million. I employ 700 people. I have responsibilities that frankly are more important than a parking ticket." Judge Caprio's eyebrows raise slowly. "More important than a court order? I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it, Mr. Langston?" Theodore's patience, what little he had, evaporates. "What I mean is, I'm a busy man. I forgot. It happens. Can we just pay the fine and move on? I'll write you a check right now." He actually pulls out a checkbook in court, like he's buying his way out of a restaurant bill. Judge Caprio's expression hardens. "Mr. Langston, put the checkbook away. This isn't about money. This is about respect for the legal process." "Respect?" Theodore's voice rises. "I've built a company from nothing. I've created jobs. I pay more in taxes in 1 year than most people make in 10. I think I've earned some respect. You've earned financial success. That doesn't earn you the right to ignore court orders." Theodore laughs, a short, condescending bark. "Your Honor, with all due respect, you don't understand the world I operate in. Split-second decisions. Millions of dollars on the line. I can't be worried about parking tickets. This isn't about parking tickets anymore. It's about contempt. You ignored a court order. That's a crime. A crime? Theodore's face flushes. That's ridiculous. I'm not a criminal. I'm a businessman. A successful one. Judge Caprio leans forward. Mr. Langston, success doesn't place you above the law, no matter how much money you make. And that's when Theodore makes his catastrophic mistake. He leans on the podium, looks Judge Caprio directly in the eye, and says with absolute certainty, Your Honor, you cannot judge me the same way you judge regular people. The courtroom goes dead silent. Judge Caprio's voice drops to barely above a whisper. Excuse me? I said you can't judge me like everyone else. I'm not everyone else. Then who are you, Mr. Langston? Theodore straightens up. Chest out. Chin raised. Pure arrogance radiating from every pore. Do you know who I am? In my industry, in my company, among my peers, I am God. What I say happens. When I make decisions, 700 people's livelihoods depend on me. I control outcomes. I create reality. He pauses for effect, like he's delivering a keynote speech. So when I tell you that missing a court date isn't a big deal, when I tell you I have more important things to handle, you need to understand, I operate on a different level than the people who usually stand here. The courtroom is frozen. Several people have their mouths open. This man just called himself God in court. To a judge. Judge Caprio sits completely still for 5 long seconds. When he speaks, his voice could cut glass. Mr. Langston, did you just refer to yourself as God? It's a metaphor, Your Honor. For the level of authority and responsibility I carry. I see. And this God status, does it exempt you from Rhode Island law? Theodore realizes too late that he's crossed the line, but his ego won't let him back down. What I'm saying is that my time is more valuable than. Stop. Judge Caprio's voice cracks like a whip. Your time is more valuable than what? Than court? Than the legal system? Than the rule of law that applies equally to every citizen? I didn't mean. You said you're God in your industry? Let me tell you what you are in my courtroom, Mr. Langston. You're a man who broke the law. A man who ignored a court order. A man who showed up 42 minutes late without apology. A man who thinks his bank account buys him privilege. Subscribe to the Narrator if you believe wealth doesn't buy respect. Judge Caprio opens the statute book with deliberate slowness. Theodore watches, his confidence finally starting to crack. Mr. Langston, contempt of court in Rhode Island carries a maximum penalty of 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. Do you understand that? Theodore's face goes pale. 6 months? That's excessive for missing a court date. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you didn't just miss a court date. You ignored it. Then you showed up late to your contempt hearing. Then you disrespected this court repeatedly. And then, Judge Caprio's voice rises. You told me you're God. It was a metaphor. It was arrogance. Pure, unfiltered arrogance. And I'm going to teach you something your money apparently hasn't taught you: humility. He makes notes in the file. First, the original traffic citation, that was a $75 parking fine. Because you failed to appear, it's now $250. Theodore winces but doesn't argue. Second, contempt of court for failure to appear, $1,000. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Third, you showed up 42 minutes late today with no valid excuse. That's another contempt. Another $1,000. Theodore's jaw drops. $2,000 for being late? No. $2,000 for showing contempt for this court. Twice. Judge Caprio's eyes are steel. But we're still not done. What else could there possibly be? Your behavior in this courtroom today. The phone call you refused to end. The dismissive attitude. The checkbook stunt. The I'm God speech that demonstrates willful disrespect for judicial authority. That's aggravating circumstances. He writes deliberately. I'm adding another $2,000 in fines for obstruction and disrespect. Theodore's face is red now. $4,000 total. This is outrageous. Is it? You said you pay more in taxes in 1 year than most people make in 10. You said your time is more valuable. You compared yourself to God, so $4,000 should be pocket change for a deity. The courtroom erupts in applause. Someone actually shouts, "Yes." Theodore tries one last time. "Your Honor, I'm going to appeal this. My lawyers will. Your lawyers will review the courtroom video where you called yourself God and told me I can't judge you. I'm sure that'll go great. Please appeal. I'd love to see an appellate court's reaction to your testimony." Judge Caprio isn't done. "Mr. Langston, you said you employ 700 people. Those people depend on you for their livelihoods. Have you considered what kind of leader you're being when you think laws don't apply to you?" "I never said." "You said it with every action today. Showing up late. Refusing to end your call. Pulling out a checkbook like you can buy your way out. Calling yourself God. What does that teach your employees? That success means you're above consequences?" Theodore has no answer. "Let me tell you what I see. I see a man who's achieved financial success and confused it with moral superiority. I see someone who thinks wealth equals wisdom. I see a CEO who's never been told no and doesn't know how to handle it." Judge Caprio's voice softens slightly, but loses none of its power. "Mr. Langston, you're 54 years old. You've built a successful company. That's admirable. But success without humility is just arrogance. Money without respect is just paper. And power without accountability is tyranny. Are you giving me a philosophy lesson?" Wrong response. Catastrophically wrong. Judge Caprio's voice goes cold again. "No. I'm giving you a reality check. $4,250 in fines due in 30 days. If you fail to pay, a warrant will be issued for your arrest. And Mr. Langston, when the police come to your $400 million company to arrest its CEO, you can tell them you're God. See if they care." Theodore leaves the courtroom shaking with rage and humiliation. As he exits, an older businessman in the gallery stops him. "Mr. Langston, I'm Victor Chin. I'm on the board of directors at Langston Technologies." Theodore's face goes even paler. "Victor, I can explain." "Don't. I sat here and watched you disrespect a judge, show up late without apology, and call yourself God. The board will be discussing this." Theodore stammers. "It's not, I didn't mean." "You meant every word. And it reveals everything we've been concerned about: your leadership style, your disregard for accountability, the way you treat people you see as beneath you." Victor walks away. Theodore stands there alone, the weight of consequences finally hitting him. Back in the courtroom, Judge Caprio addresses the remaining people. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you witnessed today is what happens when someone confuses financial success with personal superiority." A young woman raises her hand. "Your Honor, I work in tech. I've heard of Langston Technologies. They're known for toxic culture and CEO worship. Everyone calls him the Oracle. This explains why." A man in his 60s stands. "Your Honor, I'm a retired judge from Massachusetts. I drove down to see your courtroom after watching videos. What you did today, that was a masterclass in judicial authority. That man needed to learn he's not above the law." Judge Caprio nods. "Success is wonderful. Building a company, creating jobs, achieving wealth. Those are admirable accomplishments. But they don't exempt anyone from basic human decency and respect for law." 3 days later, Theodore's outburst makes tech industry news. The video goes viral. Comments flood social media. CEO calls himself God in court, gets destroyed by judge. This is what happens when nobody tells you no for 20 years. Judge Caprio just gave a master class in humility. 1 week later, Langston Technologies board calls an emergency meeting. Victor Chin proposes mandatory leadership training for all executives, starting with the CEO. The vote is unanimous. Theodore issues a public statement. "I apologize for my behavior in court. I let arrogance cloud my judgment. I'm committed to being a better leader and a better person. He pays the $4,250 on time. 6 months later, employees at Langston Technologies notice changes. The CEO is different. Still driven, still successful, but more humble. He listens more, thanks people, shows up on time, treats everyone with respect. Someone asks him what changed. I met a judge who reminded me I'm not God. Best lesson I ever learned. Subscribe to the Narrator now, for moments when arrogance meets authority. And when one word, God, costs $4,250. Theodore Langston walked into court thinking his success made him untouchable. He left $4,000 poorer and infinitely wiser. Judge Caprio proved that courtrooms are the great equalizer. Doesn't matter if you're worth $400 million or $40. Law applies equally. Respect is mandatory. And calling yourself God just proves you need the most humility. This is what happens when a CEO forgets he's human. When wealth becomes a shield instead of a responsibility. And when one judge reminds an arrogant man that in a courtroom, there's only one authority, and it's not him. Theodore learned the most expensive lesson of his life. You can be a god in your industry, but in a court of law, you're just another citizen who has to follow the rules. Comment below. Was $4,250 enough, or should Judge Caprio have gone harder? Let's discuss.